Welcome to the channel. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Community Report 67 for Workers and Resources Soviet Republic. This was released on the 5th of February 2023. Now, if any of you are more interested in the waste mechanic, which is due in the next update, sorry to say that there is nothing in this report related to that system. And I would strongly recommend, even if you're a little bit disappointed about the fact that there's no information on the waste management side, this report covers an area which I think is going to be very significant to the game once it's actually released, and that is because it relates to being able to manage your power supply. So I certainly recommend reading this report through and considering the options that the devs are now presenting us. So let's just get straight into it. It says, greetings, dear comrades of the Soviet Republic. First month of the year, which should be the coldest in Europe, has passed away, which means that people can ease on their energetic concerns, which are caused by the raised consumption of energy for heating purposes. But why do we mention this here? It's because we want to introduce something that many of you wanted, and we have dedicated a significant amount of time to deal with the problem and to provide a solution. We have something special for you, and this will greatly improve your power distribution, making wind and solar energy more viable. And you will also be able to manage your priorities with power distribution after it will be released. Now, there's a picture below showing power distribution, but what I'm going to do is go down and read the paragraph underneath first. We added brand new power switches, which would not be anything extra besides the option to have more variety. And we added special switches for power distribution, which allow you to set priorities. What does this mean? That these switches have inputs and have outputs, which can have different priorities. Those with orange power signs in the picture are the ones. So what it's saying is, if you look in this picture now, is that the yellow ones are your standard power distribution, although it looks like we've got a few more options now. My immediate observation with this is I think the modding community will certainly be updating their mods, especially the one that looks like the middle one in the bottom here, which has actually got a power pass through for high energy. But what you see on the end here is a small one with a 2 in 2 out distribution at the top there. And it looks like this one on the right hand side is 3 in 3 out. So these are the two that the report is referring to. So moving down to the next paragraph, it says, so what is the use for these? It's simple but powerful. You may have a wind farm or solar power source, and you may want the grid to be using that as a source whenever available. Then you connect that to the switch and give the higher priority as a source. On the other source branch, you can connect fuel burning power plant with a lower priority, and the switch will draw power primarily always from the higher priority source, and only the rest of the required power will be drawn from the lower priority power. You can even have 3 sources, wind, nuclear and coal, in a single switch, with wind as the highest and coal as the lowest, as it always. This is the most expensive to secure a power supply at all times. So if we click on the picture here, what we've got is the actual panel for the connector, and I think the connector it's referring to is just off the top left hand corner there, and what you can see here is this has got a solar power plant here and a coal-fired power plant feeding into this single switch with an output to these buildings on the right hand side. And I'm not sure if you can read the print, so I'll just go through it. It says input connection 1 is low priority, input connection 2 not connected, input connection 3 high priority. So what I'm guessing is that the solar power plant is high priority and the coal is low priority. And we've got a single outbound connection, which is just set to low priority because, of course, it's the only connection out. What this is implying is that if the solar power plant is producing energy, that the draw to these buildings will come from the solar power plant first before it starts to draw on the coal-fired power plant. That, I think, is going to be quite interesting. I can think of a lot of priorities already, especially if you've got an industrial site nearby as well. And if we close that and we look at I think this is the way it's set up for night. And it's just a kind of duplication of the one that's above. So I won't go into that much. It's just showing the power consumption in this area. It's not very well laid out. The residences are right next to the power station. These people aren't going to be particularly that happy. Anyway, that's irrelevant. So we're going to move down to the next paragraph. It says, besides that, you can prioritize the outputs too, which means you can set a residential area as a as a priority for the distribution of some industrial area, which is not so critical as lower priority. In that case, the low power situation, when there may be not enough workers available in the power plant to power everything, you may not be so critical because the industrial facilities were shut down first, and only if there is not enough for residents will they be out of power. That's interesting, because I must admit I have had situations like that where the industrial area is pulling all the power from a power station, and the residential ones are actually showing that they've got no power. So being able to protect residential areas, especially when you're playing at higher difficulties, because of course you lose power, that often means that you have an immediate consequence on happiness. So moving on, but there is another case for use of these new switches, and you may have guessed it right, is a great to manage the power import exports. Oh, interesting. You can simply set the power input to low priority, or the power export output to lower priority. In this scenario, we will only import power only when it's needed and export only when you have excessive power you have. This way, you will never import power if it is not necessary, and export when you cannot afford it. Now, that is very interesting, because I must admit I have had situations where I've set up a power grid and I've had an import connection, and it's cost me a fortune. In the end, I've had to destroy the connection to the border to stop the imports, and of course vice versa. I did have one situation in my Seven Crosses series where I bought a power station that was near the export point, and the export point was literally sucking all the power out of the power station. So being able to filter like that would be quite interesting. Let's just take a look at the picture. You can just see the border power condition there, and what we got is a switch here, and we've obviously got power coming in. Yeah, it says we've got a single connection coming in, and then and we got two connections coming in. Actually, we got a low power priority and a high priority, and then we got going out is a high priority one, which I would assume is to feed the local network. And then what they've done is set the other one to medium. So what's happening now is that we're only exporting electricity as and when we've got a surplus, and that's interesting. So just to see what the devs are talking about here. There's another thing we can show you is in picture, and we successfully implemented is adding of higher quality screen space ambient occlusion, which is already in the game, but it is slowing the FPS a bit. But most of the modern graphics cards should be able to handle this with ease, but you can see the real difference in the pictures. Now, I'm aware that I'm recording this off of a low resolution image, so it's possible that you may not see a difference. I think I can see a difference. And what we got below here, it says this is a full screen before and after type. You have to zoom in to see the difference. Well, I'll just very quickly show you the picture, guys, but obviously it's going to be, well, we'll go for the higher definition one. Oh, that looks pretty good, actually. I think I'll use this for the thumbnail. Again, it's not something I can really show you in the report because it's not going to come through by the time I've recorded it, and then it's been uploaded into YouTube. So what I'm going to do is just go through the final paragraph. It says, we hope these are good news for those who may have been disappointed thinking that we're all in for DLC development. It's not that way. We have many other things in development besides the waste management, and we will inform you in proper time as we need more than words to describe the ideas. There may be some surprises because it's not all in the roadmap what we have on our list, and in the end it is all for the game to make it even better and more interesting to play for more people, even if it may not be the genre for everybody. Anyway, that is all we have for you today. We wish you health and success, enjoy life, have fun, and stay tuned to our next report. I can't comment on the graphic improvements because I would have to look at that in game, and of course we won't get that probably until the updates drop. But I must admit I am very interested in these switches, because I must admit I have had situations where I have had power problems because of the fact that you couldn't control the flow of the electricity. Having that level of control would be very useful. Now, one additional scenario that I can imagine for these switches is something that, again, I did experience in my Seven Crosses series, where I had multiple power stations feeding local areas, but they were all interconnected. And what I found sometimes is that certain areas were drawing all the power away from a town or city that actually had its own coal-fired power station. And I like the idea of the fact that you could possibly create a on-demand national grid. Say, for example, you've got a town with a coal-fired power station and it's driving a bit of industry, but you want a connection that may go across the map to help another area at times of shortage. So what you could do is give that connection a low priority, so that the town on the other side of the map would only draw on that power as and when is necessary, and when there's also power available in the town that's actually generating the power. Because one of the advantages of that is that if you get into a really serious situation, you can protect an area of your economy without damaging the whole economy across the map. And I think this will have a big impact on the way we actually manage our power grids. And the only thing I will say is that I hope the modders will look at this and start producing updated versions of some of the switches that are currently available, like the four-way power switch, or possibly the pass-through connector. I think this is where I'm going to leave it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found it interesting. Any comments or opinions, feel free to chuck it in the video description and we'll have a chat. So until next time, whatever you do, enjoy your gaming.